So John, welcome back to Australia. You've been here for a few years. I know that you started here, your riding career, then you went to the States, then from there to New Zealand.
Yes.
And horses sort of were part of your life all along?
Well, no, actually I had 12 years off, had a little holiday, and when Soundtrack broke down, my last 3-star horse in 91, I sold everything and gave up for 12 years and didn't start riding until we were in New Zealand.
So what drew you back to the sport in New Zealand?
I met my wife, my dear wife, my long-suffering wife, and in 2000, and she followed me down to New Zealand, and she started coaching there, and inevitably she had some naughty horses, and she put me on to give them a kick in my jeans, and in the end I thought, this is ridiculous, and I rang my mother up and said, take my britches out of storage and send them down. Yeah, and I just started sitting on naughty horses, and then I think in 2003 we bought another naughty horse that we took through to 1-star national 3-day champion in 2003 in its first year, and then I had the bug again. I was back. Up
and going again. So I mean, you rode as a young person, competed actively, and then you competed in really high levels and international standard stuff. And of course, being around horses, you know how hard that to keep sound, number one, and in hindsight, I guess you've used a lot of different bits and pieces along the way as far as additives for joints, etc., etc. So is it more important to you now, thinking about that, keeping your horses sound and about keeping them really well? So I know that you now are a great Rose Hip Vital user and fan and realise the worth of it, but like myself in the old days, back in the day, you didn't really think so much about that stuff. It wasn't so important, but in hindsight it was really important. So what drew you to trying Rose Hip Vital?
You know, you touch on a really interesting point there, Roger. Youth really looked after us well in our day. But the problem is, I think there's two things that have impacted on me. Is I'm almost 50 now, and then 4 years ago I
don't look it.
Thank you, Roger. it's the cream I use. And then 4 years ago I had quite a horrific accident at the Sydney.
I do remember that.
Yeah. So it was a rotational fall at the water, and I woke up 4 days later in Liverpool ICU and didn't know I'd been on a horse. So I had all sorts of things that had gone on, but the soft tissue and the joints are the things that suffered the most. I had multiple closed fractures in my face and dislocated a collarbone, cracked a bunch of ribs, popped a lung, but I dislocated my hip and fractured my pelvis. And actually the hip dislocation's been the most impact really with my riding, because it's my right leg, and every time I get on a horse I have to swing my leg over the horse. So we had our good horses on Rose Hip Vital. I found it, and I've always been a big believer in looking after horses' joints and trying to get longevity, because we both know it takes a great deal of years to make one of these horses, and then every year you can keep them there is gold for us.
Absolutely.
So we had our good horses on the Rose Hip Vital, and I'd rung Justin up to get some more product, and he said, oh well, how are you going on it? And I said, well, actually we don't spend any money on me.
Oh no, exactly.
All the money spent on the horses. He said, that's ridiculous. I had told him about my accident. He said, you should be on this product. So you know what, he gave me a couple of bottles, and we hadn't talked for over a month, and he rang me up and he said, oh, how's that going? And I said, actually, I hadn't really thought about it. I mean, I'm diligently taking...
This is so funny, because I must be telling the same story, but continue.
Yeah. So I said, I'm diligently, you know, the bottle sits on my desk. It's the first thing I take in the morning, last thing I take at night.
Yep.
And I said, I actually haven't thought about it, because I've got no attention on my hip. And I've got a big tear in my right shoulder as well. My right shoulder had given me a great deal of trouble, you know, getting pulled around by horses, and both my shoulder and hip have, in 4 years since my accident, within my first bottle on a loading dose, never been better in 4 years. So it's a bit of a catchphrase I've come up with, as nutrition you can feel. And
true.
Yeah.
Well, that story is bizarre, because I got to say it, since I use it, it was a bit the same. Justin saw me because he was helping other people with the product, and being a physio, yeah, oh, for goodness sake, another another one of those powders that are expensive or relatively expensive. And I thought, I don't be ridiculous. I'm not feeding it to my horses. You've got to prove to me that it works, you know. And, I just don't know whether my horses can't tell me. He said, well, here, try this. He said, got an ache pain. He said, I've got a buggered knee, in fact, 2 knees and a back and a this and a that and something else. So I thought, yeah, whatever. So I took it, the same story. I took it morning and night, diligently, and I thought, oh, what a pain. But anyway, exactly like you. 4 weeks later, Jocelyn said, I'm fine. And all of a sudden I thought, oh my God. I haven't run on my knees for 15 years.
Wow.
I can run a little bit, not much, but I can run. And my knees have been unbelievable. And I've stopped taking it a few times and it's been disaster. And there's no way I'd stop.
I'm not going to stop.
No, nor me. Absolutely not. So it's interesting that your story mine is exactly the same. But anyway, so getting back to your hip, I mean, as a physio, what you've been through is pretty horrendous. And the problem is that you get better. You've had a broken bone or a joint or whatever, and you get a little bit better, and you think, oh, this is okay, I can cope with this because it's better than it used to be. But when you stop and think about it, it's still not great.
Yeah.
But you just put up with it. But there's no need to nowadays. With stuff like rosehip vital, it's certainly not an absolute cure, but oh my God, the difference to my life getting around is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And with you, with those injuries, it's not now, it's in 5 years' time when your wife wants to get on another naughty one.
That's right.
She's going to be pouring that rosehip vial down your throat for the rest of your life. Yeah, so it really makes a big difference.
Yeah, and I can't, it's funny because we'd had the horses on it for nearly 2 years. And I really appreciate what we do for the horses.
So why did you keep it on it for 2 years?
Well, the horse that...
So you obviously saw a difference.
Yeah, well, the horse that we had the accident on, Flaunted, he didn't hurt himself in the fall at the 3-day. About 12 months after my accident, I was making a comeback back into the sport. I was about 7 months off the horses, and I was just show jump training at Copacabella on a grass surface, and it was the last fence of the day. He jumped the house down. I was really thrilled, and I just said to Caroline, I'm going to come inside to a big oxer, and that was going to be it. And I turned inside on an inside line, and he just lost traction in front of the fence, a stride out, and still jumped.
Being the try he is.
Yeah, and into a big oxer, and he put his front feet down in the oxer, in the middle of the oxer, and pulled the fence down with us. And he was still in a tuck position when we hit the ground, and there was a rail trapped under his leg. So initially he was really lame, and about 6 months after the fact, he went out and did 3-star again. But I started to feel a difference in the canter, because he's tough as nails. And when we were cantering around doing dressage schooling, I said to Caroline, it just feels like he's trying to stay off that leg.
Yeah.
Not lame yet. And we took him out to Agnes Banks to work him up, and they x-rayed him, and they said it was the worst spur they'd seen in a fetlock joint on a horse that was still
competing.
Yeah, and he was quite lame on flexion, not lame without flexion. But really, it was starting to progress. It had started to progress really quickly.
Yeah.
So we got to the point where if he just had a buck and a play in the paddock, he'd be lame for 2 days. And he'd, at this stage, retired completely from competition. Like, we weren't competing, we used to give some lessons. And if he was a little, off, we'd give him some bute to help him out a bit. And one of the vets from Randwick Equine had told us about it, because we were still injecting him with Penazan. He was on 10 grams of green lint muscle a day, which was costing a lot for a retired horse.
Yeah.
And Rachel had said to us, look, you should try the rose hips. We've had really good results. And so we did. And 2 years later, he'd hardly limped a day. It took a little while for the loading to come up, but I dropped the Penazan first, then the green lint muscle, and really hasn't limped in 2 years. So that made a huge impact on me. I've talked about it a lot.
We can talk about this till the cows come home, because I know you're not stupid as far as promoting something or saying something about a product like Rosehip Vital that isn't going to work. And I'm the same. Excuse me, as a physio, I know there's a million products out there, and of course I'm sure they've all got a little bit of worth, but I don't think there's any question there is no question in my mind. I don't really know what's in it, and it really doesn't bother me I'm not a great scientific sort of person, but all I know is I tried plenty of stuff for my joints and bones, and none of it has made an impression. I'm sure maybe a little bit here or there, but there is absolutely no question I couldn't do without rosehip vital. And both my horses, one was like yours, never to be ridden again, and he's done 2 Grand Prix tests now.
Wow.
And he's only on rosehip vital, nothing else, not another additive.
Wow.
Salt.
Yeah.
But it's unbelievable. And he looks $1 million. I mean, health-wise, and myself, being a couple of years older than you, it's not so nice getting old, but I can grow old quite nicely with rosehip vital because I really feel healthy.
Yeah.
It makes me feel really good. And the few times that I've run out or stopped or haven't taken away with me, it definitely
It tells on you.
Oh, absolutely. So now, with the grey horse, what's he up to?
Oh, he's really just a schoolmaster now. Caroline, eventing's my thing. And I really want to focus on that. And she'd love me to start just show jumping him again because he used to.
I thought she just wanted to do dressage.
That's her dream. It's never going to happen, Rog. If she tweaks me off the rosehip vital, that's probably all I'll be able to do is dressage.
Well, you might.